The Cure, Songs from a Lost World. Of course, it's The Cure's most recent album, just released last year, the first album in 13 years from the band, but I don't think anybody can argue The Cure's credentials as an 80s adjacent band. They were the height of their powers in the 80s and the early 90s, but back in those days, I was not in the market for The Cure at all. I was very much a prog rock snob at the time, so I don't have any Cure albums except for Mix Up, which is sort of a greatest hits remix album I picked up back when I was working in a record store, and that's kind of served as my defining document of The Cure's music, which is not a very good representation of what they're actually about. So it's been really interesting to pick this album up because I don't know what I expected from actually listening to a full regular studio Cure album, but this album is very, very lush and beautiful. I was really amazed at its immediate capacity to set and sustain mood. Also, just move along at this really gliding glacial pace, and I don't know if that emphasis on atmosphere is something that has always pervaded The Cure's work, but I really, really love it here. And of course, Robert Smith's voice is still in amazingly fine form. He's a stylist, of course, so as long as he can perform music in that style, any kind of maybe range issues or issues he has with his voice, it can be masked to a degree. But really, it sounds quite pristine and like I remember it from those earlier Cure albums. Another thing I found out about this album as I was researching it is that the guitarist on this album and the official guitarist for The Cure is Reeves Gabriels of Tin Machine fame, back when David Bowie had his side project. And of course, Reeves Gabriels would go on and play with David Bowie as one of his regular musicians in the 90s. So I was really, really surprised with this album, and I continue to be surprised with it. It continues to impress me over and over. And it's a really compelling continuation, I think, of The Cure's catalog, showing them heading in this very mature direction, but one that's really very clearly connected to where they're coming from as artists.